Well, hello, and welcome back to another podcast episode with Brittney Bundles. You are listening to the Brittney Bundles podcast, where we empower people through entrepreneurship. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about broken trust in business and also how to repair it. So broken trust in business and how to repair it. Before we get started with the topic though, I do want to let you all know that the podcast schedule has changed. So typically on the Brittney Bundles podcast, we have a new topic, a new episode every single Thursday. And so what I am doing is I'm working on ways to carve out more time and to structure my life in a way where it allows more time and more outlets and options for me to be able to branch off into some other projects. And so I always talk about the importance of making sure that you are structuring your life according to the goals that you have set forth. And so that's what I'm doing. So until further notice, my YouTube schedule has changed. I made an entire video about my YouTube schedule as well as my podcast schedule on my YouTube page at Brittney Bundles. So if you are not following me on YouTube, please be sure to do that. That way you will be updated whenever anything new happens or, when there's any announcements or any exciting upcoming events or anything like that, you will be notified via my YouTube and also social media platforms, which we'll go over a little bit more towards the end of the podcast. But I am going to be posting a new episode on this podcast every other Thursday. So I do encourage all of you to go over to my Instagram for the podcast, which is Brittney Bundles _podcast. That is Brittney, Brittney, Bundles, BUNDLES _podcast, PODCAST. Follow me there so that the weeks that I'm not posting a new episode, you'll still be able to see any other inspiration or encouraging messages that I still want to get out. And I'll go ahead and post those on the Instagram. So I'll take a moment and let you all go over to the Instagram right now and start following Brittney Bundles _podcast. We still want to stay connected, but until further notice, I am going to be dropping a new episode every other Thursday. All right. So again, today we're going to be talking about broken trust in business. Now, trust is an essential part of any relationship. And that's what business is. Business is a relationship, whether it's between yourself and your customers, yourself and your clients, yourself and another business partner, yourself and your assistant, again, business partner in some aspect. But trust is really important. And there are often times where we enter into agreements, we enter into these relationships, and our trust is broken. And so for a certain period, it seems like our business has stopped, or it may be at a standstill. It's halted. It's stagnant for a little bit. And we need to figure out ways to move forward with our business, even after the trust is broken. A lot of times I look at my business as I do personal relationships. And this is something that a lot of people tell you not to do. Business is separate from personal. And to an extent, I agree with that. But the same fundamentals and principles that I try to apply in my normal life, personal life, are the same fundamentals and principles that I try to apply in business. Now, we all fall short. There is no one that's perfect. There is no one that's going to get it right all the time. And that's why it's important to constantly work at becoming our best selves. That's why it's important, in my opinion, to share our journeys. Because even if we have overcome it, there's still much more value and good works that we can do with that testimony than just keeping it to ourselves. So I enjoy sharing our journeys on this podcast. I enjoy sharing my struggles. I enjoy sharing what I've overcome. And so I have overcome a lot of broken trust in business, a lot of broken trust in relationships. And that has helped me move forward with the purpose that God has for my life. That has helped me move forward with the plan, with my goals that I've set forth for my personal and also business life. And so again, today we're going to be talking about broken trust in business, plus how to repair it. Get ready. If you have not already, go ahead and share the podcast episode via social media or with a family member or friend. And in just a moment, we'll come right back and get started. Welcome back to another podcast episode with Brittney Bundles. I'll be back in just a moment. All right. So welcome back again to the Brittney Bundles podcast. Again, we're talking about broken trust in business. Now, there are a lot of different scenarios that broken trust can play out in. There are so many people that can relate to having their trust mishandled or having their expectations not fulfilled. And what I do want to start off by going over is learning how to grow from the experience. A lot of people that I come into contact with are very nervous about trying something new. They're nervous about letting people in, which I can agree and relate to because I'm nervous as well. Through a lot of different relationships and a lot of different business opportunities, I get nervous. I do get nervous. But what I've learned to do is I've learned to continue to move forward in faith, continue to move forward the smart way. And when I say the smart way, what I try to do is I try to look at all possibilities of working with a certain person and all possibilities of diving into a certain business relationship. Now, realizing that this relationship could go really well, and these are the benefits that my business will receive based on me collaborating with this person or based on me going forth with this relationship, business or personal. And then I also look at what are the disadvantages? What could possibly go wrong? And a lot of people tell me when I say that, don't think about what can go wrong. Don't think about what can happen that's not right. You shouldn't go into something thinking that it's not going to work. And to each his own. But one thing that has helped me is before I go into anything, I'm looking at all possible aspects. I'm looking at the good, but I'm also looking at the bad. I'm looking at what may go well, and I'm also looking at what may not work. And that helps me stay prepared. Now, also going into different business ventures, there is always a chance. Going into different relationships, there is always a chance that it will not work or flow or happen as you intended on happening or flowing. There are a lot of people that start their businesses and they have the expectation that their business is going to take off. And it doesn't. And at that point, a lot of people have become discouraged and decided to stop their business because their intentions or expectations, did not come into reality when they thought it should. But one thing that starting a business, starting different business relationships and moving forward, even though you may be afraid or moving forward even in fear, is the experience. And there are so many people that downplay how valuable experience is. I'll tell you something. When I was working my 9-to-5, when I was actually a manager, I was a manager for a corporate company. And one of my roles as a manager was to hire and also terminate certain employees if need be. And so one of the things that I looked for when hiring, as well as my higher ups, so district managers and, CEOs. And it wasn't a huge company at that time. And so the CEO would occasionally come in and drop into the store to see how things were running. But one thing that I would look at, and also, like I said, my higher ups would look at, is experience. Because experience is so valuable. So we would have people, that would turn in their resumes and their resumes would look great. But one thing that stuck out and one thing that I was trained to identify is, have they done this before? Now, they don't have to do it, in this particular way. They don't necessarily have to have experience or the ability to navigate this particular system offhand. We can teach that. But I do want to know that they have experience in this field. Do they have experience connecting with people? Do they have experience selling? Do they have experience in building relationships, rapport? And if so, then that would be an indicator that this may be someone that we want to actually bring in for an interview after looking at their resume. So experience is key. When I started my salon and I decided to end my salon. A lot of people came to me and told me after I made my post on Facebook explaining that my salon was no longer going to be in service or open. I was going to transition my business, which I did. But when I made that post, a lot of people, especially, my dad, he came to me and he said, what you posted, the transparency, is something that a lot of people can't do. I applaud you for doing that. I applaud you for not just showing when you opened or not just showing when you closed, but because your testimony is through business and entrepreneurship, you shared the entire journey of that entrepreneurial experience. And what a lot of people thought was the end from my entrepreneurial journey. And even sometimes I would think, okay, man, closing this, is this the end of it? Am I done? But I didn't let those thoughts overtake me. I didn't stop there. I continued to push forward. I continued to grow past. I continued to learn and grow from the experience. And ultimately, I was able to continue on in a much better way with much more insight because of the experience that I had from going through with what I wanted to do. So realizing that even if you start something, even if you connect on a different level with someone and you are wanting to go into a business relationship, even if it doesn't work out, there are still so many benefits and so much value from that experience and learning and growing from it that is truly unmatched by any cash offer. It's unmatched by any training that I've taken, the actual experience. So sometimes there are things in our life that are not going to work, such as business relationships, even if the trust is broken. But as long as we learn how to grow from the experience and move in a different way, a lot of times, very often, we'll be better off. So I'm here to let everyone know that whenever you are entering into a business relationship or whenever you're doing anything in business, sometimes we don't trust ourselves. It's not even another person that we're having trouble trusting. Sometimes we don't trust ourselves in business. We have broken our trust by not moving forward, or we have broken our trust by deciding to start something and end it. Or we have broken our trust by down talking our business to others and making it seem smaller than it really is to help someone else feel better. A lot of times the broken trust comes from within. And so, again, we're talking about not just the broken trust, but how to repair it. So learning and growing from our experiences and realizing that there's a chance that it could go this way. But ultimately, no matter what happens, I'm going to get the most out of this experience. And I'm going to use this experience as my testimony. So often, a lot of people try to be something that they're not. They try to be perfect. And although I do definitely agree with sharing what you want on social media. You don't have to share every single aspect of your life if that's not what your calling is, or if that's not what you feel comfortable doing. However, it is very important, in my opinion, to show transparency in the aspect of I'm not perfect. I'm human. These are things that happen when I do fall. These are things that could happen if you were to fall. But this is also how you get up. And this is also what I've learned. And this is also how I'm moving forward. There are people now that pay for my insight based on the experiences that I've had. And not all of the experiences were good experiences. So there is value in experience. There is value in going through and walking through, even though you may not want to at that point because of fear or because of doubt. But move forward. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is seeking legal counsel. So I am now working on different projects. I'm now working with different people, and I have looked into different options as far as legal advice for my business. Different ways to enter into different agreements with people so that we're all protected. Different ways to move forward with business relationships. So seeking legal counsel and making sure that you're covering yourself for the unexpected and maybe expected moments for your business is going to bring a certain peace of mind that I believe will allow a lot of people to move forward, even after their trust has been broken. There are some people that have hired different ambassadors for their business, right? Different ambassadors to promote their hair products or their clothes or shoes or lashes. And that ambassador has also been their friend. And when something goes wrong with a relationship, that ambassador decides to badmouth the company, or that ambassador starts to do things that are not ethical because they're hurt and they're working through emotion instead of, looking at things logically and ethically. And so there are different ways to protect yourself, like I mentioned, through legal counsel. I have communicated with different lawyers and different attorneys on what if scenarios. And I think that's really important to do because you never know what truly is going to happen. But being prepared is something that allows me to be able to walk confidently. We talk a lot about confidence on my YouTube channel at Brittney Bundles. And we also talk a lot about confidence here on this podcast. Now, confidence is essential, in my opinion, in business. And it's something that takes some time, a lot of times, to grow into. But knowing what we're dealing with and knowing the options that we have available has always helped me move forward in a way that exerts and shows the confidence in myself. Now, let's not mistake confidence for cocky. We never want to feel so confident to the point that we believe we cannot fall, or to the point that we believe we're not accountable, or to the point that we believe that there's no other way right besides ours. But seeking legal guidance for your business is a very, very wise thing to do. And at first, if you're working with a friend or a family member and you're like, look, this is what I'm going to have you sign, or this is what we're going to do to protect ourselves and my business. At first, they may look at you and say, I don't want to do it, or this seems crazy. And at that point, you want to think back and you want to go over your options to see what's going to work best for you in this particular relationship. But there are always options. There are always ways to repair broken trust and also to protect your business in the same token. So maybe you have a brand ambassador that has never done anything wrong towards the business, that has never went ahead and did anything malicious. And you don't want them to sign anything. You want the relationship to remain. That's fine. But if something does happen, and if you decide to no longer trust how you have trust before, because something happens with that relationship and the trust is broken, there are always remedies. So another way to repair broken trust in business is to seek legal counsel, and again, to move differently. And the moving differently is all with the intention of protecting not just yourself, but your business. Now, the third point that I wanted to point out is move differently in the future. So we've been talking about that this whole podcast. When people come into my life, even though, I may not be excited or satisfied with how the relationship played out, and this is personal as well, I'm always grateful for the experience and the opportunity to learn more people. And learning more people and having different experiences causes me to move different. I remember I was sitting around a group of people and we all had different perspectives, it's a beautiful thing. But if you've never had children and you're thinking hypothetically, just as an example, you may actually have a different perspective than someone that actually has children, right? Okay, or let's say business. So say you've never ran a business. You may have a different perspective on how filing taxes, for example, may go versus someone that has actually been in business and has filed taxes for the last 10, 15 years, business taxes. So you may have a different perspective, but either way, the person that has had the experience will more than likely move differently. And also, like I mentioned, have a different perspective than someone that doesn't have experience in that area. So moving differently comes from, in my experience, from my view, it comes based on the things that I've incurred and gone through in life. It comes from the things that I have dealt with. And once we are able to look at things and not so much of a woe is me type of way, but look at things as what they are and look at people for who they are and look at the business for what it is, it becomes a lot easier for me to identify what I needed to learn in that certain situation and move according to it. So I'm now grateful for all of the relationships that I have. I'm now grateful, more so grateful for even the relationships in business and in personal, okay, that did not work out how I intended, because it did teach me how to move differently. If you look at different contracts, and you ask the person that is asking you to sign the contract, or the company that's asking you to sign the contract, and you may say, well, last year I didn't have to sign a contract. A lot of times in my experience, people will explain, well, we had a situation where this happened, and so now we're protecting ourselves differently. Or, hey, we had a guy that did this, and now we're doing it this way. Or, hey, we had a woman that came through and did this. And so based on what they've gone through, they now move differently in a way that protects their business. It may be a way that they never even considered protecting, maybe in a way that they never even knew that they had to protect it. Now, the fourth point that I wanted to go over is monitor who you allow in and at what place. So not everyone that comes into contact with you that wants to build a business relationship should be worthy of building that business relationship. Now, we don't want to allow fear to stop us from moving forward with our business. We don't want to allow fear to stop us from entering into relationships that are going to enhance our lives. But we do want to use discernment, and we do want to use our common sense and experience as to who we're going to allow to get close. There are some people that have different purposes. They serve different purposes in our life. There are some people that are better being your friend than your business partner. That's why a lot of times when friends and businesses start to mix, a lot of times it doesn't work. Now, sometimes it does. But a lot of people that I've talked to, it just doesn't work. Now, I'm not saying that it can. I'm just saying it's a lot of times that it doesn't work. So monitor who you allow in. Who you allow in at certain places or certain parts of your life and your business. There are some people that are better off as business partners than they are friends. There are some people that are better off as mentors than they are at business partners, right? So not saying that, hey, you can't fit into this particular place in my life, so you're not valued, but looking at the relationship and deciding on where this relationship should be placed. Because everyone has a different purpose in your life. Not everyone's purpose is the same. Not everyone's value is going to be the same to your life or to your business. So monitoring who you allow in and at what place is going to help us be able to secure that trust, and not just whoever we're working with, but also in ourselves. Using that discernment is going to help build trust within ourselves, because an important part of being in business is learning to trust yourself as well. And I had to come to the realization of that really this year, asking myself, or maybe it was at the end of last year, asking myself, Brittney, do you trust yourself? Do you really trust yourself? And this is a question that you want to apply, in my opinion, in every area of your life. Do you trust yourself to make these decisions in your personal life? Do you trust yourself to make these decisions in your business life? And begin to trust the process, knowing that there is a chance, like I said before, that the process may not go as you intend. But still being able to trust yourself and standing firm in your decision, in your business relationships, is going to help you continue to move forward. There are a lot of people that have decided not to move forward because they're waiting on the answer or the go-ahead from other people. They're waiting on the validation from other people to continue with this business venture, instead of trusting their vision, instead of trusting God, and instead of trusting themselves. So by monitoring who you allow in and using discernment, it's going to help, like I said, build that trust within yourself. And it doesn't mean that just because you have used your discernment, everything is going to work out great either. Because ultimately, we all have free will. So people can change up at any moment. You can change up at any moment. I can change up at any moment. So it's deeper than that. But continuing moving forward, and then also realizing that no matter how this turns out, we're going to use the experience that we had to further and better our business and to continue building other businesses based on our testimony, is something that is very valuable and unmatched, like I said before, by any training that I've taken before, in the past. And I'm not downplaying training, but I am uplifting the power of experience. There comes a time where we have to experience how it is running our business. There comes a time where we have devoted enough time into researching and putting off getting started. That doesn't mean that you should stop researching and stop investing in learning your craft or in learning your skill or improving your skills. But it does mean that we do want to get started, because experience is very important in any aspect or any industry that we're looking to get into in relation to business. Now, the last point that I wanted to touch on is remaining intentional. So if you have a situation where you find yourself experiencing broken trust in business and you're wanting to know how to repair it, remain intentional. So just because someone does something to you that isn't right does not mean that you have to figure out a way to get back at them. It doesn't. There are so many people that are in the business of justifying what they've done and proving someone else wrong and feeding into negativity and feeding into lies and feeding into deceit by trying to go back and tell people what it is. And it becomes, we've seen it a lot of times on social media. At least I have. Someone says something and then the person comes back out to defend themselves, and then someone says something else, and it's a never-ending cycle. But remain intentional. Remain intentional about what your purpose is. Remain intentional about what you came to do, and realize that it's not your job. It's not your job to make sure that everyone acts accordingly. There's different ways that we can protect ourselves, such as legal counsel, such as learning to move differently, such as monitoring who we allow in our life and at what position. However, it's not our job to make sure that everyone does what they should do. It's our job to make sure that we continue to stay focused and we continue to push forward with the goals and dreams and vision that God has placed in our heart. And we remain intentional. Meaning that even if I have been let down in this relationship, we'll add personal into, like we've been doing business or personal, I'm still going to remain intentional about what I came here to do. Even if we no longer are business partners, we've severed ties, I'm still intentional about what it is I want for this business. Even if my business is no longer operating in the same location or in the same capacity that it was operating last year or the year prior, I'm still going to remain intentional about what I'm going to do moving forward. So remain intentional, remain focused, regardless of what anyone else does, regardless of what anyone else says, and continue to move forward in your business. There are so many people that have stopped the progression of their business, waiting to get validation and waiting to combat everyone else that has something to say. And I'm just here to remind you all that we all have a limited time on this earth. We all have a limited time to actually manifest and bring into reality the purpose that God has for our lives. And a lot of times we have not found our purpose because we haven't connected with God. And then also we haven't found our purpose because we're not trusting ourselves to actually get started with something that is pulling at our heart. We're not trusting ourselves. We've thought of a million ways of why it's not a good idea to start now. We've thought of 2 million excuses as to why we're going to continue to wait. But it comes a time where it's the time. It comes a time where it's going to be the time. It comes a time where it's time to move forward. It comes a time where it's going to be time to take a chance. It comes a time where it's going to be time to overcome. And so the best way that you can repair any broken trust in business is to continue to move forward and to learn and grow from the experience. Again, we talked about seeking legal counsel, moving differently, monitoring who you allow in your life and at what capacity, what place, and then also remaining intentional to your purpose and for your business. So I really hope that you all took something from this message. Ultimately, like I say in every episode, I do not want the conversation to end. If you'd like to be a guest on this podcast, or if you'd like to sponsor an episode where we shout out your business name and promote your sale if you're having one, or product or service, be sure to email me. I also want to give a big thanks before I even provide the email address. I want to thank you all for tuning into the podcast. We did recently reach over 1,000 plays on Anchor for the Brittney Bundles podcast. So yay! I thank you all again for listening, sharing the podcast, and ultimately tuning back in. It does not go unnoticed, And I truly, 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 I truly am grateful and I am humbled by this whole experience. This whole experience, knowing that it's okay to be human. It's okay to fall. It is okay to start a business and it not work as you intended it to work. It is okay to get in business and not gross or make the amount of money that you had hoped to make. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to fall, but we're all about getting up and moving forward. So if you would like to be on this podcast sharing your journey, we'd love to have you. Email me at Btalks, it's BTALKS, @yahoo.com. I am also on Instagram at Brittney_bundles. That's Brittney, BRITTNEY _bundles, BUNDLES. I'm on Facebook, Brittney Bundles, Twitter, Brittney Bundles, and YouTube, Brittney Bundles. Until next time, I'll talk to you all on the next podcast episode.